Hello, welcome to the Shining Icosahedron Great Order. This is Favoribus, and with me I have my co-host Maratura. Hi Mara, thank you for joining us. Thank you all for joining this early in the Thursday. That's a little bit strange for our channels, but this is a very special interview. We have Alastor. How are you, Alastor? Thank you for joining.
Hi, thank you for having me again.
And we have Moe. Hello, Moe. I believe this is our first time.
Yeah, this is my first time being on the show. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for accepting and for letting us help you introduce this game to the world. Before we jump into the actual subject that it's blank and bullet and blank.
Bullet
I
and
always
blank.
mix up. Bullet and blank.
Bullet and blank.
Let's talk a little bit about you two. We know that you do games and you play. That's like basic for the four of us. We all love RPGs. But how did you guys started playing first and creating second?
I'll jump in first. I started playing many moons ago, back in the 80s, with Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition, and quickly moved to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness, Top Secret, and finally landed in Champions, which I played for probably about 15 years. Got busy with life, and when I was a kid, you were in the closet about being a gamer. It was
That's
not
true.
cool, and gaming and dating was hazardous at the time. So there was a time I stepped away from gaming for a little bit, and I came back around 2015, and was just amazed by all the new amazing gaming technology and culture, and new tropes that had come to the hobby. And it has just been thrilling to be playing new games that do things other than like colonializing and killing. And playing games where the ROLE part of the role play are emphasized, and playing games that people are literally inviting you to hack and kit bash and make new games.
That's true. And you mentioned about the hazardous side of playing back in the day. And I guess that's partially what has you in the creation side of the games now. Like you had that experience, but now it's a little bit cooler, or maybe not that closeted.
Right. Well, part of it was I just got away from the hobby for a good 15 years. I moved to Los Angeles from Oakland, California, and my gaming group was in Los Angeles. I mean, was in Oakland, and I just didn't find a new one. And someone invited me to a game. I explained to them all the reasons why I didn't like D&D, and they said it's not D&D. I was like, well, what is it? And they were selling me Monster of the Week, and they were selling me games like Microscope, and games like The Quiet Year, games that like really intrigued me. And like I said, they were doing something different than a 20-minute ramp up to a 1.5 hour combat.
That's amazing, and it's strange. It's not common that whenever you find a new group, they don't start with the most popular games. Yeah, that's good luck on your side.
It was very fortunate. Yeah.
So what happened between you getting back into playing and starting creating games? Because I understand that the one we are introducing today is not your first game, right?
It's not my first game. I'm sure, I hope you didn't have the experience I had many times where you have a game master who has a very specific story in their mind and you're invited to the table, but you shouldn't do it wrong.
Yeah. I must confess I was that game master once. I understand the other side of the table.
And I'm confessing I may have been that game master too. And so my advice for those game masters is go write a book or something. And I got into writing and wrote some screenplays for some spec films that never got made, and began like getting into the YouTube space, the web series space, and really got into filmmaking. Um, and it was interesting because it was some of my filmmaker friends who were like, "Hey, you want to play RPGs?" And I think that really kind of helped me transition back into it, and see the storytelling aspect of RPGs in a different space. And so um, my first RPG was a concept that I had. I used to live in Tokyo. I lived in Tokyo for a couple years. And
Nice.
when I was in Tokyo, I had a bit of a fever dream about like a steampunk
Oh.
magical place that was super. Tokyo is the largest city in the world, and it has a large expat community, a lot of people who are not Japanese, and I just love the idea that all of these people from all over the world were literally having adventures. And so my game Shibuya Nights, Knights, hey, um, is kind of a urban RPG where relationship is more important than golden experience.
Mhm.
Because as I've matured, I've kind of decided that how you treat people and how people think of you is sometimes way more important than how much money you have.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
You know, and so I started making this game, and it was funny because somebody said, "Oh, you mean you want to play a game that involves kind of heist and adventure and it is stuck in a city? Oh, you mean Blades in the Dark?" And so then I read Blades in the Dark, and I was like, "This is very similar to the thing I'm doing, without the ghost punk," you know. And so I decided to kind of pivot Shibuya Nights a little bit and make it more funner, and
Mhm.
more adventurous. I think Blades in the Dark, it's a wonderful game. I really love the idea that you play a scoundrel. You're literally a bad guy, and then the system is punitive for you doing anything bad, but the
Right.
game is you doing bad things. And so I designed a game, Shibuya Nights, where it encourages you to try to swing from the chandelier to do something fantastic and wonderful and fun. And I also decided to write it in such a way that if you passed it to a 10-year-old kid, you wouldn't be answering lots of questions about vices and stuff like that. And in the process, I played For the Queen. A buddy of mine, I guess, got a hold of an early copy of For the Queen, and he became a kind of For the Queen evangelist.
Mhm.
And I absolutely loved the gameplay. I love the emergentness. I really loved how it was a game that wasn't necessarily for gamers. And
That's
a lot
true.
of a lot of people who want to play RPGs, they see For the Queen and first they poo-poo it because they say, "Oh, well, how can this be a game? And well, who's my character?" And I'm like, just wait, just wait. You will have a character by the time we're done." And then it happens, and you see the magic trick just happen in front of them, and they almost wonder, how did that happen?
Yeah.
And the Los Angeles area is very interesting because it became a game very much for a lot of young people got into the game, a lot of teenagers and high schoolers, and I appreciate that they really loved the feeling of deep emotions. They love the feeling of uh, like this experience with this queen who is very toxic
Mhm.
but caring. And I think everybody has had those people in their life. And
True.
so like it's a game that like I think comes from a place that is um I think so culturally rich, I
Yeah.
think even amongst different cultures.
Mhm.
And I love that game, and I love playing that game. but I definitely have come away from a couple For the Queen games saying that was very deep. I'm not sure that I would call it fun.
Yeah.
And after one of those For the Queen games where one of the players ended up in a good kind of tears, me and another player ended up outside of our local game store for hours after they closed, talking about like what else this system could do. And I said it would be really cool and fun to make this a petty trash talking game where there's the notion of the will they won't they in the rom-com. It's like,
Yeah.
are they gonna get together, are they not gonna get together? And I said, there's a certain point where I think a lot of people, male and female, really appreciate that. But what if it was more petty? a little more catty, a little more passive aggressive,
A little
and
more realistic, we could say.
so just to be clear, this is a game.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I think this is where Bullet and Blank was born, and I immediately saw it as it's absolutely a card-based role-playing game, just like For the Queen. But in my opinion, it kind of plays better with beer, and you could definitely take it to a party and play it as a party game, and people who never knew what a D20 was would have a fantastic time and easy access to playing.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It reminds me, we've had recently several interviews with people that mix education with role-playing games. And a lot of the questions that we received on the chat are related to how do you show kids or people that have no idea what tabletop RPGs are, how to play without playing with more complex, more advanced games, or
Right.
that at least require more time, because sometimes you only have 1 hour to show someone the game. And if you're creating a character with a big long sheet, it's not going to take less than an hour. Or if it does, you don't have time to play. So these kind of games really are a great introduction to people that have never played and are interested. I really like that.
And for me, it's kind of I guess a kind of response, I don't know how do you say the word in Spanish, the idea of a rebound. When you have a relationship and it's very deep and profound, and maybe your next relationship is not deep or profound.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we have a specific word, more like a phrase, but yeah.
But
I have to use rebound like the concept in English. I have to use in Spanish. So.
But I think after playing Champions for so many years, where it literally takes you 3 days to make a character sometimes in the old system, and you have to like know the system and you have to like study the system, and it is so engaging, and the system works because you get you exactly the thing you're looking for, right? But like For the Queen and now Bullet in the Blank really do that role-playing thing. But like you say, like you could pull out that deck of cards and it's emergent. It teaches itself to the table. And I think people who are thinking about role playing and want to introduce people to role playing, I strongly recommend For the Queen. I strongly recommend another game called Decaying Orbit, which also gets into those heavy feels. But if you want to like make sure that everybody's laughing and like having loud fun at the end of the game, I think Bullet in the Blank is a great game for that. It is not profound. It is absolutely fun.
That's a great presentation to a game. It's like, and I really appreciate that you say it like that, just plain and simple. It's for fun, it's not deep.
Yeah.
Because a lot of creators and writers, and it has happened to me occasions, that you want to introduce what you're working on and you want it to be meaningful because it is meaningful to you because it's like your life work. And you want to show it to someone, And it's hard sometimes to accept that it might not be like super top intelligent or intellectual
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
And if that's the plan, that's great. And I like how you are comfortable presenting it like that, like it is. And we are, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So we are actually jumping in directly to the game. And just for anyone that is just joining us, we have the creator of the game that is soon launching on Kickstarter, Bullet in Blank. And we are going to talk about what on earth is that. So we had a little bit of the concept of the game. Could you tell us about the setting?
The setting is the Wild Wild West. I need to be clear, it's the Western United States. Because I have recently been reading a lot about how Texas becomes a country and then a state. And I am from Oakland, California, so I'm very aware of how the California goes from being Mexico to something to a state in the United States.
Yeah.
And so I think there's an interesting culture of the West that had a lot of young adults kind of lost and out in the world finding themselves in a very dangerous world where they had to depend on themselves. And this was kind of the cowboy culture, which as kind of research is being done, people are rediscovering that it was very native indigenous American, it was very Black American, it was very Mexican American, it was very Chinese.
Yeah.
It was very diverse. And so like there's that part of it that like this isn't kind of a game for the white guys that people don't fit in, but also you know, it was also a place where your reputation was what you said you were when you came to town, and people misused that, and there were lots of bank robberies and horse thefts and wife stealing, and there were some bad people. And so in this game you play a bad person.
Okay.
A bad person who has good friends, but if you hang out with bad people, even if they're good friends, sometimes that bad's gonna turn on you. And so
Yeah.
and so these people are they haven't been to therapy. They have not been through mindfulness training.
Of course.
And so our game is set 5 minutes to noon, out in the middle of the street with guns drawn. And you and your friends need to have a talk because they're your friends.
Like a talk?
But they did some stuff. And so the question is, are your friends going to shoot you, or are they going to kind of go and have a drink with you? And so you draw the cards, and the cards lean into statements that remind you and create scenes from your relationship. And some of these cards remind you of how your friend Fovo always steals your liquor and always
True.
drinks everything, and how Marat was really good to you when your family kicked you out of your house and you started on the road. And like, if you played for the queen, you know that the cards help you build characters. But if you haven't played for the queen, if you've never heard of that, as you draw cards, you have an opportunity to speak to the card, okay, or to pass the card to somebody else at the table who, as their character is being developed, you think they may have something interesting to say about that.
Okay, that's cool.
Very quickly, people fall into roles, and people, and as they role play, and you know who the horse thief is, you know who the greedy person is, you know who the kind person is, and you might get a card that says, Alastor did all of these bad things to me, and then you might get a card that said, but he always took care of me when I was hurt.
Okay, it
Yeah.
balances it out.
And the cards are randomly drawn. You don't know what cards are coming. If you play with 2 people, it's a different experience than playing with 5 people. And at a certain point, the high noon card is drawn, and it's time for us to make a decision. Who's walking away from this and who's not? With a 3 or more player game, you have to vote for somebody to live, and you have to vote for somebody to die.
Oh.
And I need to make it very clear to the people who play traditional TTRPGs, living and dying is not a victory condition. This is,
Okay.
you're not really dying. This is just a fun game.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, like, sometimes it's really fun to lean into the heel, the bad guy, and make sure everybody knows how bad you were. And sometimes it's fun to tell someone, you know, I appreciate that you were always good to me, in those times when things were bad. And as you build your character, you end up at this point, and you get to vote to see who lives and who dies. And you turn over your cards, and we figure that out. And it's always interesting how the cards go, because maybe 2 people at the table were really annoying to you. One stole your horse, and maybe one of the persons had a knight that you've never talked about since, and it better not be spoken of.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like it's a game that is very light and very easy. I wish I could tell you it was light and easy to design, because there were lots of play tests. I actually met Alastor with this game in New Jersey at a game design convention
Ooh.
many moons ago, in the before times.
Yeah, it was before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah.
Oh,
Long time
wow.
ago then.
And I was playing with people, and it was one of those things where, I'd play 5 games, and 3 of them, people would be distracted in their games. They'd come over to see our game, and they'd stand around and they'd hover, and they'd be like, this is amazing. And then every couple of games, something wouldn't work right. And you
Yeah.
just saw it on people's faces. And so I think the game has come a long way since then. And it absolutely sings now. And now we have amazing graphics, because there was a time when it was the best I can do, and I can write all day, but some days I could barely draw my name. So it was great to kind of run into Alastor, who said, I think we could take this game to the next level. And I said, I would love some help doing that.
That is great. That is great. And also, it brought us to you. I'm sorry, the other way. It brought you to us and to our viewers right now.
Yay!
By the way, right now, everyone in the chat, you can see the link to the
Backerkit.
yes,
The
that.
Backerkit launch for the Kickstarter campaign.
Exactly. Thank you. So you can go ahead and start supporting. It will be launched on October 31st.
That's right.
So you have time to get ready to support this amazing game. Now, I have a question. You mentioned when you explained the story with Alastor that you were testing already before the pandemic.
Yes.
And you know how sometimes people say, you don't ask a woman their age, you don't ask a creator how long it's been taking to create this thing. But could you tell us since when you started working on this?
I think I started working on this in 2019. And I think it was ready, and I thought it was ready in 2020. It was one of those things. I spent a lot of energy trying to figure out how it could work online play, because we weren't really hanging around our friends in person.
Yeah.
And it just had a very different feel online. Um, I think some of those kinks have definitely been worked out now that Roll20 has, like, I think, better tools for doing that sort of thing. I was on tabletop. There was a board game platform that I was trying
Okay.
to use,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't sing. The not being together really stood in the way of the mechanics of online play, and I went to my first convention in 2022
Okay.
and took some new ideas out to the table, and it was good to see people in real life, and
Yeah.
yeah, the game worked better than ever. you know there was a time I was California, Los Angeles was hit very hard with COVID,
Yeah.
not as hard as New York. um and it's interesting because there were places that weren't hit as hard, so people were getting together sooner. And I was sending it to people across the United States and other countries, and just getting feedback. And yeah, I think it came a long way. Sometimes you sometimes you want a game to be finished and it's not finished. And so I think it benefited from COVID, just being able to step away from it for a little bit.
That's good. I mean, it's always good to have a little time off. And you are mentioning, well, I had two questions. First, about the feedback. You're mentioning that you send it to people from other countries.
Hmm.
Now, I'm curious because, as you mentioned, this is very imbued with the culture and with the history of the States. Was that something hard for other people to understand or to like connect with the dynamic?
It's very interesting. One of the big, not a big fix, but one of the fixes I made was adding cards that, and kind of writing the cards in a way that evoked an obvious response and a not obvious response, because I found that there were young Americans
Mm-hmm.
who didn't grow up like me watching black and white westerns on pre-cable UHF channels. you know um they didn't know who John Wayne was. They didn't know Ronald Reagan was a cowboy. um
Okay.
and so there was definitely a point where I crossed that bridge a little bit earlier. I found that because of Red Dead Redemption, a lot of people around the world, you know, they actually, I don't play a lot of video games.
Mhm.
So people are like, oh, yeah, this is just like Red Dead Redemption. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, what's that? And they were like, oh, well, let me send you some videos. Well, it's exactly Red Dead Redemption. And so, I think the last great cowboy movie was The Harder They Fall, but that came out last year, and before that I think it was Unforgiven, which came out like maybe 10-15 years ago.
Oh,
And it was an Oscar movie. It was a prestige film. It wasn't a
uh-huh.
genre film like superhero movies are now. So
Right.
um but I found the people who are into the gaming space, they seem to really, like, okay, what's the setting? Are we cavemen? Is it medieval? Is it Asia? Is it Western? It's not an unusual genre.
Mm.
So gamers get
True.
it.
True. That's
I
true.
would love to go to some place and that's not the United States and play with somebody's parents, who, you know, they're not a gamer into all the gaming stuff with heads full of trivial knowledge.
Mhm, mhm.
I just learned about hat pins. Do you know what hat pins are?
Hat pins.
Yes.
Yeah. So apparently in 1900, women in New York and across the United States in big cities would pin up their hair, and they would take the hat pin out and they would stab men who were feeling on
Yeah.
them and on trains and stuff like that. And I heard someone mention that, and I was like, that's like the best assassin tool I've never heard of.
Well, I
But
don't
that
know. What if you get the evidence on your hair when you put it back?
Yeah.
do you have more than one? I mean, if you're going to do a job, you know.
That's true. That's true.
But this is how gamers think, you know what I mean?
Immediately jumping to how can I get
Yeah,
away with
yeah.
this?
Exactly. You know, so I think gamers as a culture tend to be familiar enough with the basics of the Wild West, of medieval, of kind of Asianish, you know, samurai stuff.
Mhm.
And you know, when you take that and you flip it, you know, and say, all right, we're going to do a Western in Australia, you know, some people have a hard time catching up, but other people, they're right there with you.
That's true. That's true. And um, basing my question a little bit on the chat, a little bit on our previous joke about you mentioned how this is for you are the bad guy,
You are
and
desperados.
and I know that there are a few games that you are like that character. However, as you mentioned when you mentioned Place in the Dark, in most cases there are like two paths. Yes, you are the bad guy, but if you take actions that are reasonable within your character, you are punished, or the idea of the game is so you or that everyone understand the side of the bad guy. Like it is in its heart a human being, and you don't have to be angry with this person for
Right,
stealing your
right,
wife
right.
or whatever. I am understanding that that's not the idea here. Like it's not to make the bad guys good or something like that.
It is definitely to lean into the humanity of it,
Okay.
but it's so the other side of it compared to many role-playing games is the setting is very small.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely on a street.
Mm-hmm.
You absolutely have done some bad things.
Yeah.
You have humanity. You have friends. You have a family.
Right.
And sometimes it comes out that part of the reason you're a bad guy is because your family needed the money.
True. Okay.
You know, there are cards in the deck that kind of lead to those types of stories. And so you can absolutely develop the character the way you want, but this game will allow anyone to step in and play. I strongly recommend that it has mature themes and it shouldn't be for kids. It
Okay.
is not a game for kids. I
Uh-huh.
have an 11-year-old. He's never played this game. And for the last 5 years, he's been looking at it. And in the last year or so, he said, can I play? And I'm like, it's not for you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's for young kids. The idea of killing people can be a very strong theme. The idea of leaning into the heel,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's definitely a question. Like if you lose sight of the fact that this is just a game, you know, I don't want anyone to lose sight of the fact that it's just a game. I think there are real times in your life when you need real help, and maybe there are games that you shouldn't play, and that's okay.
True.
So, but you may want to be the bad guy who gets everybody hating you know, because you know how it's going to end.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
that's the way you want to play the game today.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And like tabletop RPGs, the idea is to be able to experience something that you probably won't do in real life.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
you're curious about that process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This game comes with safety tools. Uh, in the instructions, there is a X card,
Mm-hmm.
and it clearly says if it's getting weird or uncomfortable, skip a card.
Okay.
You know, change the direction of the game. It's you know, this game is not more important than people. And when I came back into RPGs in 2015, I loved this new part of the culture. that said, the story at the table is fun, but the people at the table are more important.
True. True, that's true.
Someone is asking in the chat if I would like to know if the game is writing with the pronunciation is the west side.
So the game has many mispronunciations.
Really?
It has a
Because
slang.
I think as I did research, the South was not, I'm sorry, the West was not a place where people were necessarily well educated.
Yeah,
And
true.
if you were well educated and spoke proper English, you went to the East Coast and became a banker and made lots of money. You didn't have a job that sometimes had you sleeping out under the stars,
Yeah,
sometimes being run out of town. You didn't choose this life. For some people, this life chose them.
true.
None of those mispronunciations are West Side. I'm sorry. But there is a lot of Western vernacular. There is a lot of Western slang.
Cool.
Okay, yeah, that's very cool. I like it.
I am
Yeah.
from the West Side, and so I do appreciate. And let's say I also represent, but but that's not what this game is about.
That's very cool. I like it. As I mentioned, I like how um realistic in a way, but at the same time it's a game, so you
Yeah.
can experience it without experiencing the actual consequences of that type of life.
Yeah.
I like it. I would like to know, because you mentioned how you based it on the dynamic of For the Queen, and that you also had this contact with Blades in the Dark, that
Yes.
was kind of the idea of your other game, and you were like bumping into this, that there are other games and we will have
Yeah.
similar ideas to other people. That's totally normal. But
Yeah.
how was your process as a creator, as a writer, on doing something based on another game and making your changes? So yeah, what was the process for you?
Well, first I want to shout out to Alex Roberts, who designed For the Queen, and it's an amazing game that is very evocative and interesting. And she also made it open license, so
Nice.
this is something that anyone can hack.
Okay.
That said, I think a game, if you're going to make it a new game, if you're going to call it a new name, it should do something drastically different. If you come away from the game with the same feelings from the two games, you have house rules, and these are my opinions, and so if you don't like my opinions, I beg your pardon. But I don't think it's really a distinct game if there are not new feelings. I
Sure.
don't think it's
Yeah.
a new game if one went away and you could just play the other.
Mhm.
So when I set out to make this game, my first question was, how can people be laughing loudly at the table? And I grew up in a household. My mom, she didn't play role-playing games, but she did play dominoes. She did
Okay.
play spades. She
Uh-huh.
played Tunk and Bidwis, and lots of games that were very popular in my community. And these games had a lot of trash talking to them. Like it was almost to the point where if you played these games and you were quiet, even if you were winning, people would say you weren't doing it right. It's funny because I've seen, yeah, as a young person, I was encouraged as I got good at some of these games. Even though my mom was there, I could be petty, but I could not be mean.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of the thing that comes from me as a person that I brought to this game, where I
Mhm.
just encourage people to, you know, um, again, this is not a personal attack. but the card is encouraging you to say something about a situation. Create the scene, you know.
Yeah.
What happened in Tijuana that you guys all had to leave right away? You know, you tell me, you make it up. And as you make it up, the game kind of fills in the blanks.
Okay, that's cool. Speaking of the dynamic in this example, that it sounds very interesting. So, just for everyone to be clear and myself to understand about how it's played, um, the process is you said 3 to 5 players?
Two to five players.
2 to 5. Okay.
I played it with 7, and you tend to lose a sense of like, okay, who is your
Unity?
character again? Oh, you were that one guy. Or what happens is people end up playing with their favorite person across the table, and everything is going back and forth,
Yeah,
and people feel left out. And
true.
well, that's not fun.
True.
But what happens is you put the deck in the middle of the table.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The instructions have numbers on them, so they're ordered, and everyone draws and reads an instruction, and you go around the table. There are, I think, 17 instruction cards. Alastor could tell you better. Because I think he
One
made some changes.
second.
But as you read those
Yeah,
instructions,
17 instruction cards.
hey, they tell you how to play the game.
Okay.
And
And you read them like I start and then you get the next
and
one
then
and
I
then
get the
Mara.
next one, and you
Okay.
read it out loud. And if anyone spent any time reading out loud with children, sometimes that experience will impress information better than reading it to yourself.
Sure.
Okay. You almost fall into the performance of the game from the first instruction, where you're reading a script essentially.
Yeah.
And I some of that time that I was not playing role-playing games, I was a middle school teacher. And there's science that backs this up. Studies, there are studies that says this is an effective teaching method. If any of your audience has ever picked up a role-playing game and that looked really exciting, and you flip through it and you love the art, sometimes you get it home and you start reading the instructions, and a few pages in, you get to that moment where you're like, I'm just gonna figure it out at the table, or I'll play this later, you
Yeah.
know. And
Sure.
so there are a lot of games that have a lot of rules in them, and this is something I took straight from For the Queen. Like, it is a brilliant way to teach the game. And after 17 cards have been read, you know how to play, and then a person draws a card, and the card is a prompt.
Okay.
If this was not a role-playing game space, I would say you then improv what the card says.
Okay.
And because the instruction cards are so detailed, you may give an answer that is as long as the instruction cards. Inevitably, someone responds to you, and then the game is really happening at the table.
Okay. And that was my next question about when is the next card drawn?
After
Uh-huh.
after I make my statement about how Phobo always thinks she's better than me because she can ride a horse faster than me,
Okay.
then Phobo draws the next card.
Because you mentioned me.
No, because my turn is done, and we
Okay.
just go in a clockwise
Okay.
motion around the table.
All right, that's good. That's cool. Yeah, because I was wondering if it's directly the person that you interacted with, the one reacting, how to avoid the back and forth. But that makes perfect sense. So it's clockwise. All right, and then you also mentioned at some point the 12 o'clock
12
card
o'clock,
is
high noon.
the high noon card is run, and it is decided what's going to happen. Now, this is decided like in a group, or the person that draw the card.
So the high noon card will remind you of the rules that maybe you read 20 minutes ago.
Uh-huh.
That now is time to make that decision.
Okay.
And each player has 2 cards. They have a bullet card and a blank card.
Uh-huh.
Hence the title, Bullet and a Blank. And I'm going to hold up my hands and say, I don't know if they had blanks in the Wild Wild West. This is to kind of represent, this is more like a movie than real life. Okay.
Okay.
But the blank is not going to kill someone.
Uh-huh.
So you point the blank card at someone you want to live, and you point the bullet card at someone you want to die.
Okay.
Because their character has been mean to your character. And or annoying.
Okay.
Or too petty.
Okay.
Or greedy. Or whatever comes
Or
up.
whatever.
Oh, I've seen some really amusing games where everybody wants to shoot the person who was too nice.
Well,
because we're supposed to be bad guys, and
Exactly.
obviously you're the weakest link. But yeah, and then 3, 2, 1, everybody shows their cards at the same time, and usually there's a little math to figure out. Okay, who? Oh, everybody's dead, or somebody lived, or everybody shot at one person, and it's a good story.
Yeah.
So if you get 1 bullet card, that's it for your character.
Yes.
Okay. That's cool. All right, I really like this game. I want to play it.
I want you to play. We should play.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually saw Alastor play testing this game, and the dynamic of the table, it was a very interesting, because I just saw it. I cannot play it, but it was very funny. I saw that people really enjoyed the game. So yeah, it would be a great idea to play it.
I was very flattered when I saw Alastor 4 years later, and he said, "You're the guy with the bullet in the blank game." And I had checked in on Alastor a couple times during COVID, but it was very flattering, and that's how you know that something is special and it's working.
Yeah.
That's true. Someone reminds you and your game, like you are the one that created the game. That's nice. Wait one second.
And that game on Mega XP, which is the convention that Maurice mentioned, it was a huge success. Like,
yeah,
everyone wanted more tables, and we were like, yeah, we have like a time limit on these tables, but we can please come later, and we can run a few extra tables.
Nice.
That was the one they were playing. I saw a lot of people. I was in that convention as well. I saw a lot of people. I saw Alastor, and I was like, okay, I want to go, but I was doing something. And then I saw them. I want to go, and I was doing something. But wow, okay, I should have gone there. Tell to my table, hey, stop. We're gonna pause our game and see that game.
Yeah.
You mentioned 17 rule cards. Then how many prompts do we have?
I believe there are 80. And so typically what happens is you shuffle the other cards, the prompt cards. And it takes about 20 minutes to get through about half. Okay. I'd say 15 to 20 minutes. And so a game can last 15 to 20 minutes. You can extend it longer. You can put the card at the bottom of the deck, but and like, by all means, play the game the way you want to play it, but if you put the high noon card in the middle of the deck, what that means is the next time you play, if you decide to play again right now, you shuffle the cards. Not only are you going to get the cards in a different order, which means you're going to create different characters and tell different stories, but you're also going to see new cards. And so the cards are such that there are enough of them that you can have 5 or 6 games at the same table and have different feelings. And I think that replayability part is really important to me because there's definitely some games in the world that once you play them, you're like, okay, I know that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was just thinking about that like 3 weeks ago or maybe more. I told my, hey, let's play this game. And she was like, again, we always play it and we know what happens. But yeah, that's true. That's very important. And I just realized that I missed something on the chat that I think it's important to mention to you as the creator. There was a very good reaction to the mispronunciation or slang that you mentioned. And
Okay.
also, they mentioned, hey, do I get extra points if I have an accent or I speak every now and then?
Absolutely. Like it's a storytelling game and it welcomes you to tell the story the way you and your table tell the story. And I think the cards being the cards are not so grammatically incorrect that you have to decipher them. You know what I mean? Like there's a consistency, like going to is always gonna.
Yeah.
But there's a way that I think it invites people to make up accents, to make up slang, to come up with and to own the game at their table.
True. That's great. I really like it. I'm excited to play it. You also mentioned, so that's it. The prop cards, the high noon card, the instructions cards, and you don't need anything else to play.
You don't need anything else to play, but we have prop cards now that are very beautiful illustrations that just help you with setting the tone of the kind of gang that you are. And so you have the bank robber cards. Can you tell us all of the cards we have, Alastor?
Basically, in For the Queen, you use a series of queen cards. They are not directly used for the game, but they work as inspiration to decide which kind of queen. So, for example, you have like a queen that has like cornet demon things. You might assume it's an evil queen. Here for this game, we designed the wanted posters and the wanted poster and the wanted action shots, which are basically if you're ever stuck in the game when you are drawing a prompt, you can say, okay, I'm stuck. Let's see what the prompt is. Okay, at some point in the past, we did a train robbery. So now you have like an event in the story that you can use it to push forward through the prompts. So the main idea is that one, they look nice. Second, they work with you if you're ever stuck, you want a little more inspiration on to set the tone for the scene. You can just draw one of them and use it. For example, you can say, okay, we have the train robbery. We have at some point we escape from prison, and this is like how we escape, and it helps you like keep moving forward through the story.
Okay.
And this is great for people who are not fluent in Western genre.
Yeah. Or in memory. And what happens to the card? So if is there a specific dynamic, like you keep it if you read the prompt, do you put it like in a pile?
You put it in a discard in the middle of the table.
Okay. All right. Okay. I really like it. Now, very important question. Can you tell us about the translation of this game? Can we expect to have it in Spanish?
Claro que sí.
That's a good question.
Short answer, yes. Like the first campaign is going to be for the English print run.
Of course.
After the English print run, we have delivered the English version of the game. We will continue to work on it, and we aim to have it translated in the following months after we deliver the English version. One, because it's one of the things we're aiming to have it translated in Spanish, along with all the other smaller AXO games we have. And second, because it's a really fun game and it's not that hard to translate. Yeah. So we want to translate eventually after the English campaign. Or if we do extremely well in the English campaign, we might translate it directly.
Oh,
That's also an
that's
option.
good. So it's in our hands, guys.
It's in your
And
hands.
speaking of the campaign, can you tell us like what are you expecting, or I mean, we know when it launches, but besides that, anything you would like to share about that?
The campaign is launching on the 31st of October. We are going to have 3 pledge tiers. One for the virtual tabletop version, which is going to work for Roll20. Depending on how the campaign does, we may be able to also port it to Foundry VTT, but that's a little more steps and complications.
Yes.
One for the core box and one for the most wanted pack, which is the core box, plus some extra prompt cards, some extra bullet and blank cards. And so it's basically an extra pack that we will give you with more art, color art, extra cards, etc. The 3 pledges are 15, 25, and 35, respectively. And our funding goal is around $7,000.
Nice. All right, so you heard it. Let's get ready for October 31st. Mentioning, or now that you mentioned the color and the art, can you tell us about that process, like selecting the style and the colors and everything? I mean, since you already have a very specific setting, I guess it's not that hard to select the colors at least, but the style, there are a lot of styles out there.
So mainly for the art style, we were consulting with Moe, doing a back and forth with the artist. We went for a more comic-y feel because we didn't want it to be like full serious, ultra realistic art.
True,
because it felt a little inappropriate for a game, and especially with you can have like some heavy-handed tops at some points. So we went with a more like a comic, colorful style. Like around the cards are in a black and white, but with like big expressions. We're working with Alcabar El Gato, which is our main artist. You saw her work in Mask of Power. So that's like the main art direction right now.
Okay.
And
That's
the cards look phenomenal.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Well, I saw part of the things that you placed there in the what's the name?
The
Yeah,
packet. Yes. Yeah, the Backerkit. Thank you. And it looks nice. Can you tell us? Can you tell us the prompts that you like the most? Like the ones you say, I always want to have those in our games?
The one that most amuses me is we don't talk about that night win, because sometimes it comes up and sometimes it gets X'd. People get very uncomfortable, but sometimes people, I think the suggestion is maybe the card is sexual, but sometimes people see that's too obvious and they go in very different, interesting directions. And I think that is probably one of my favorite cards to come up in a game. What about you, Alastor?
In my case, it is the I didn't leave you for dead because I think that card specifically works to create like a positive bond with another player, which is like, yeah, I could have left you for that, and I saved you. Now you owe me for that one. So it works out when people, because I have seen it used both ways, like when you try to convince someone to not shoot you, or when you have already like built a feud with another player, and it's like, yeah, we did a lot of bad stuff, but I also saved you once. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
And it's a really funny game because sometimes things come up early in the game and you're telling a story. And if you have an old friend, some things happen with that friend that you don't want to think about too much. And you want to remember the things that are more recent. And so the game starts and it's like you're telling a story about how maybe somebody did you wrong, but then you draw these cards and they talk about how they were such a good friend to you. And, it tells a story. My wife, she has a longer memory than I appreciate. And sometimes she talks about before we were dating stories, and I'm often very embarrassed.
Those are the best stories.
I don't like those stories.
No.
All right. I am so excited to play this game. I cannot wait for October 31st. And I know that's not when I can play the game, but it's at least when I can feel it closer to us.
Right now on
Yeah.
the Backerkit launch page, we have a print and play version that has like part of the prompt cards and like the main
Oh.
instructions. So the idea is that everyone can just download it and try it before playing on the Kickstarter or before backing. So it's a very simple print and play. Just had like the prompt cards, the text, and that's it. So you print it and cut. But we are offering that right now on the Backerkit launch kit.
Because this is
Nice.
how confident we are. You're going to have a good time.
I am sure that we will. With what you've told us so far, I am confident it's going to be very fun.
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate the effort you're putting and you've put on this game. I think it's a very good idea, and not even if it's inspired by another game or it's like a common setting, speaking of the West or the Wild Wild West, it's not the combination that you created is something that me personally I haven't seen, and I think it's a very good idea. I really appreciate you guys for coming, and for everyone that is watching us right now, thank you for coming so early. This is not our usual schedule, but we had to mix it up with everything that goes around in life. This is what could work best for us, and also so we can have it before October 31st, so people can get to know about this and be curious about it and have this Kickstarter explode in success.
Yeah.
Before we close it for today, would you like to share anything else, maybe plans for the future, what you're expecting from this, or anything that you would like to share, even if it's not about this specific game?
You could find me and my work at ashyfeet.com, ASHYFEET. That's a joke in some communities. They think that's very funny. Where you could see my kids' podcast, Bun Amigos. It's a travel podcast for kids if you want your kids to know about more than your town.
That's nice.
It's a thing. I'm currently working on a couple other games. One of them is Fabulous Freeman, and it's a fun African American history game. And I think it's going to be a board game. I have some things to talk to, more things to talk to Alastor about.
He said it all.
What you say about the game, yeah. Okay.
All right, that's nice. Sounds good. I'm very excited. I'll keep tabs with you for that.
Yeah.
Alastor, anything you would like to share from you, your projects, or Axo?
No, right now, like this, our next launch. If this one goes well, we're planning a full series of 40 Queen hacks. We have a horror one and a space one. So okay, if you like this one, keep them for those two.
Our string master, already share the links of your Instagram and the Ashy feeds that you said before, and also the Instagram for Axo and the Kickstart projects, so people can saw it there.
Yay!
Yay! One more time,
Perfect.
thank you so much, guys, for coming, for sharing the game with us. Thank you to our viewers. You will be able, or the rest of the world will be able to see this in soon on our YouTube channel.
Yes.
We will be sharing the links and everything, and we will be sharing the Kickstarter link so you can start
for this project.
Yeah. Kickstart this project.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing the game, and may your checks be always critical.